What's up, my nerds? You're in the machine. If you're an active person, no matter what it is you do, here are 4 hip and leg stretches that you need to improve performance and prevent injury. We're gonna hit the hip flexor, the hamstring, the inside of the thigh, and the outside of the hip. These do not take much time and they're easy to memorize, so you can do them every time you're warm from whatever it is you do. Let's go. Let's do this. 2 quick things. 1, yoga itself will make you flexible. A consistent yoga practice, in addition to all of the other benefits, will give you more range of motion in your muscles and your joints. This, however, is for a lot of the athletes I deal with who don't have time, at least not every day, for yoga. So once they're warm from whatever it is they do, jogging, biking, jiu-jitsu, whatever, they can do this as a quick way to build flexibility without really committing to yoga. That leads me to the second point. You are going to get the most bang for your buck out of these stretches if you do them once you're warm. It relates to something called tissue viscosity or muscle viscosity. It's a little bit complicated, but trust me, your muscles will be more pliable and willing to stretch farther once you're warm. Only 4 stretches here. They all connect and they're really simple. We're going to start with a lunge. We're going to go to a half split. We're going to lean forward and drive the knee out to get the outside of the hip. Then we're going to step the foot back and stretch the adductors, the inside of the thigh. Really important to know what we're stretching here. So the first time through, I'm going to offer some little fancy diagrams. Okay, but let's get started. So from coming in from your jog, warm from jiu-jitsu, fresh off your horse, whatever the heck it is you do, you should be warm with a little bit of an elevated heart rate, right? All we're gonna do is step into this low lunge with the knee down. The knee is gonna be below the hip. We're gonna step the front foot so that front knee is over the ankle. This is the trick. You gotta pick your own depth and level of flexibility. Once you get into the lunge, you want your front knee to be over the ankle. So if I can get low enough from here, it's not really helping my lunge that my knee is so far forward. So I'm gonna walk this forward to about there. Now when I really drop down, I'm pretty close to having my knee over. I might even back it out just a little bit. Now I'm in a deep stretch. Important with this is that I don't allow the tension on this psoas muscle to open me up. That's what you're gonna wanna do because it's so tight. Stay square to the front of your training space. Sometimes you have to pull the front hip back to achieve that. Then I drop down low. It's important to know how this muscle works. Mainly we're hitting the psoas here. It's part of the hip flexor group. Starts in the femur, goes through the pelvis, and then plugs into like the lumbar vertebrae. This is what it looks like. Okay, now that you have an idea, I have to move all of these joints to really stretch it. So this might feel pretty good, but you're only getting part of the stretch. The key to this, once you're in place, your hips are square and you're as low as you can go, is to bend back. So I like to brace the front knee with that corresponding hand. Reach up and back, and you'll feel it really light up into that abdomen area. And I'm gonna hold these for a 3 count. Nice deep breaths. 1, 2, 3. Then I'm gonna back the tension off altogether, and then I'm gonna hold it for a 5. Drop it in, line it up, square hips, deep and low. Leave them low. Sometimes when we reach up, we come out of the lunge. Leave them low and reach up and back. Here's the 5 count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Excellent. Relieve that tension now directly into the half split. You should be able to just push back to straighten the front leg. If you're a little wobbly, you can adjust the lower leg in the back. Peel the toes up. Again, the tension created is going to want to make me open this position. Don't let it happen. Pull that front hip back, almost like you're trying to drag your heel. You should start to feel some tension already. From here, with your back flat, hinging at the hips, you're gonna start to go forward. Remember, there's 3 parts to the hamstrings group. Looks like this. Okay. We want to try to get all 3. So once we're in a tight spot, we're going to turn the foot in and out like a little bit of a windshield wiper. So getting into the stretch, keeping this position, hinging at the hips. This might be as far as you go. That's okay, just hang out here. If you need to brace on something, books, yoga blocks, a couple of chairs, whatever it takes. From here, I'm hinging at the hips to really engage the stretch on the hamstrings, and I'm going as far down as I can. It might be a long ways, it might be a little ways. Once you're really getting down, rounding the back a little bit is not a problem, and then I'm gonna turn the foot out, through the center and in. 1 breath, out, through the center and in. 2 breaths, out, through the center and in. 3 breaths. Come forward, alleviate the stretch altogether. Now we're gonna go for 5. We're doing this with each muscle group. Back it up, line it up, square hips, toes up, pulling the front hip back, starting to hinge at the hips and fold forward. It does not matter how far down you go. It's still a stretch for you. If you can get down here, a little rounding is okay. And then on 5 breaths, we're gonna turn the foot out to in, out to in, out to in, out to in, out to in. I think that's 5. I'm gonna bring the heel back a little bit, alleviate the stretch, go back to the lunge as low as I can go, take the off hand and put it up and out to the right, just as a brace. All this is doing is helping me not fall over. Now I'm gonna turn my toes out a little bit and push this thigh out, driving at the side of the knee, the very bottom of the thigh. So I'm pushing. This is getting this piriformis muscle, which is a big part of a group of muscles that help move this hip. It'll also get some glutes, but this is one you kind of have to play with to move around a little bit with your hips and your thigh to find that perfect stretch spot. And you might find a couple of different spots. You might find one that feels good, and then you'll feel it transfer a little bit as you adjust your hip. But I'm bracing on this side, toes are out. I drop this hip down. I'll still get a little bit of a stretch in this psoas muscle, but I'm focusing on this outside hip. And you might be super tight, you might be barely pushing it with your elbow. That's okay, it's still a stretch for you. Drive it. You can look back if you need to. Remember, if you start coming out of this, you're going to alleviate the stretch. We're setting the tension and then adding to the tension. And again, this is kind of a weird muscle that's hard to identify. If you get like a massage and they really get into the glute, it's usually the piriformis. Looks like this. We're gonna hold it, count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Alleviate it all together, give it a rest, let it get nice and soft, and then push it in again for 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Last one. We're going to get these adductors inside here, kind of off the groin. All I'm going to do from here is push back, straighten the leg right out to the side of me in line with the knee. The important part here is that I set some tension right now. It should already feel like a stretch. And now, leaving the foot planted flat on the mat, I'm going to drop my hips down so my butt goes near my heel or thereabouts. From here, you can also play with this, turning the thigh bone internally and externally a little bit to find the perfect spot for the stretch. There's 2 big pieces of this, adductor longus and adductor magnus. They do most of the work, and you can kind of switch between the 2 just by adjusting the angle of the rotation of that thigh. Looks like this. You're welcome. From here, we're going to go 3 and 5. So once you're in the spot that gives you the stretch, it should be therapeutically painful. That means like you're really rubbing a sore muscle. It kind of hurts, but it also feels good. For 1, 2, 3. Come out of it and completely release the tension. And now we'll go back in for 5. Settle it in. Find your stretch. Your body is different than mine. You might need a weird angle. You might need to be a little farther out, but these are generally the mechanics. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Coming up nice and easy. We're going to switch it out to the other side. Everything exactly the same on the right. So we start in this lunge. Nice and square. Remember the alignment. So I'm going to have my hip over my knee, and I'm going to put this foot so far forward that when I get to my depth, the knee is about over the ankle. And you can always adjust with your toes as you get there. That should start the stretch. Remember, hips are square. The tension is going to want to open them. Don't let it happen. I brace up, I reach forward, I reach back without coming out of the lunge. Settling in. 2, 3. Totally release it, alleviate everything. And let's come in for 5. Forward and back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's straighten it out for that half split. Again, squaring the hips. If you're a little wobbly, do whatever you need to with the back leg to keep your balance. Toes up. Peel the hip back. Don't let this happen. Toes up. Hinging at the hips, back is flat to start. You might not get down very far. Don't be tempted to round over just to get lower. That ain't part of this. Go down as far as you need to for the stretch. When you get pretty low, you can start relaxing the back a little bit because the stretch is already in place. 1, 2, 3, bring it up, relax it completely, punch it out if you need to, and let's go for 5. Start up, set it up first, always set it up. Flat back and hinge, you're getting lower now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Directly into that stretch for the outside of the hip. Pull the heel in a little bit, set it down. Left hand up and out to the left. Push after you turn the toes out a little and find that stretch. Again, this is kind of a weird little muscle, so you might find yourself kind of turning your hips and your spine to find just the right stretch. And you might even move in and out to push it in to the glutes, but it's all outside of the hip. Super important. And tight on most people. The job of these muscles is to kind of stabilize your femur under your hips, which is sort of important if you want to walk. 2, 3. Come on out, relax it completely, and back in for 5. Get the depth, use your brace, push. Remember, you don't have to push that far, and if you're really getting into it, you can start to lift the foot up for a little more drive. Not always a good idea to like completely crank the ankle over though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Release it, and let's set up that adductor stretch. So I'm going to do a little side kick out till my leg is straight. Might be way out there, might be way up here. Doesn't really matter. Straighten the back, straighten the spine, square the hips. Your foot is about directly out from your knee. Find a little bit of tension, and now sit down to it. And as I sit, I move a little bit to the left to add to that tension. And again, I can kind of work the angle of the thigh bone to move this between the longus and the magnus. 2, 3, bring it up, relax it all together, even if that means you have to take it out of place for a second. Put it back, and for 5, settle it in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. 4 stretches on each side. You can hold it as long as you want and do it as many times through as you want, but do it once you're warm. Really quick review. The cool thing about this is almost like a little miniature vinyasa because it all flows together. I just came in from my karate class or whatever the heck I do. I'm nice and warm. I'm going to find this lunge. I'm going to go deep, feel the tension, and reach back. That's 1. From here, it couldn't be any easier. I straighten the leg and lean forward to get the hammy. That's 2. From here, I come back forward, plant, and press. That's 3. From here, drive that same leg out to the side, settle in to get the adductors. That's 4. If you do this every single time after your exercise, if you're exercising consistently, I guarantee you'll see flexibility improvements or your money back. Don't forget to like and subscribe, ring the little bell, leave me a comment if you have an idea or a complaint, which I'll probably erase, or maybe a compliment.
But the whole point of the machine is to relieve you of that suffering.